You asked for it, and I'm finally delivering. It's time for my UI video. Today we're going to go over all the add-ons I use for PvP and how you can import them yourself to get exactly what you see on screen. And you can see the outline here. We're going to go into ElvUI, which is basically my base UI, the skin and bones. Then go into WeakAuras with some UI improvements for showing my stats and letting me know when I have a proc. And then we'll go into OmniCD, which shows friendly CDs. BuffOverlay, which is a nice way to show defensives, externals, and some key debuffs. BigDebuffs, which I use specifically for crowd control and immunities. GladiusEx, which has my enemy arena frames. OmniBar, that shows enemy cooldowns. Details, which is just a well-known combat log and data stream. And finally, Diminish, which is just a personal DR tracker. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to show you how to import everything from the ones that you can use using a simple import string, and then the other ones where you have to copy an ElvUI file. So with that, let's get into it. The first part of my UI that we're going to talk about is ElvUI. This is a complete UI replacement, and because of that, I don't necessarily recommend it, but it is totally modular, and I'll explain that in a little bit, so you can pick and choose which pieces you want. So to start off, let's just take a look at the ElvUI menu, and there's all these different things on the left-hand side where you can control. Like I said, those modules you can turn on. There's some general things, action bars, bags, buffs and debuffs, chat, cooldown text. You can get some data streams here, maps, nameplates. You can change the appearance with some skins. You can change the tooltip. You can modify uniframes. There's all sorts of things you can do for aura filters, and there's profiles you can easily export and import. So the why I use ElvUI is, first of all, let me just say it's not that common for a PvPer to use it, but I started off in this game as an avid PvEer, doing mostly things like Raid and Mythic Plus, and when I switched to doing full PvP a few years ago, I liked it too much to let it go, and so I just adapted it to fit PvP. Some things for PvP and ElvUI specifically that I do that I get a lot of comments that people like are my unit frames. So we can go here and just show some test frames. So in Arena, you would only have these 3, and you can see it shows all your party members here. It shows you their role, their name, and then on the bottom we have some core debuffs, and on the top we have some core buffs. And importantly, I have some filters here where you can see, for example, for the party debuffs, we can go to filters. There's all these custom filters that I made so that I only see the information that I want to see. And that's kind of a key philosophy of what I do when I'm building out my UI for PvP. I want to only get the information that I absolutely need in a way that I get the information quickly, in a way where I can respond to it quickly. And so custom debuff filters help. The other thing that I get a lot of comments on are the nameplates. And you can do the same thing with nameplates and ElvUI. I have a lot of custom filters here. And so what this does is eliminates some of the annoying problems of nameplate bloat in Arena. We all have faced a problem where you're facing a Demonology Warlock or an Unholy Death Knight or a Shaman with 10 different totems out, and you just want to see what's important. And so I've created these different categories that do special things to certain player NPCs. So there's a big group called Name Only, and what this does, these are things like minor pets and demons and summons that you really don't need to respond to, at least as a Holy Paladin. And so there's lots of things here. These would be things like wild imps or some of the smaller ghouls that an Unholy Death Knight would summon. I also have special player NPCs that will have a purple or a pink nameplate. And these are things like Psyfiend, Tyrant, that's really important to kill right away or otherwise deal with. And their names aren't shown here because they're just listed by NPC ID as a robust way to grab the right NPC and do the right things to it. But you don't have to worry about tracking those down. I have it all here for you, and you'll be able to easily import it into your own profile if you choose to do so. And there's another one for totems that I use. I color totems a sort of light blue so that I can distinguish them from player nameplates and special NPCs and so forth. Okay, so that's it for unit frames and nameplates. The other thing that ElvUI does that I really like, I can customize all the information that I see on these unit frames here. You can see on the left I have my target or my personal player frame, and I have my health as a number, as a percentage. I also have my mana bar, and I have some blocks up here for my holy power. And then there's these two bars here, which are actually for my Dusk and Dawn buff that I'll get into in just a second. That's actually a WeakAuras. And you can see it's really easy to track my holy power by just looking at my unit frame. And you'll also see some buffs coming up here that'll be talked about in the next section when I go over WeakAuras. But for now, I just want to point out that these are the ElvUI unit frames. I have my player frame on the left, I have my target frame on the right, and then to the right of that I have the target of my target, which in this case is myself, and then to the left of my own frame I have my personal focus. So another thing I want to mention is action bars in ElvUI. You have access to a ton of action bars, and the way that I do my own action bars is I like to use mouse overs. So I'm going to turn off mouse over so you can see kind of some of the hidden bars that I use for my UI. And there's lots of text over them, but basically what I have here is all the stuff that either doesn't have a cooldown and therefore I don't really need to track it, or I just put it up there so I could organize my visual action bar down here. Or I have, lots of tedious things like all the ways that I do CC. So I have Arena 1, 2, 3 kick, Arena 1, 2, 3 rep, Arena 1, 2, 3 hodge, and then I have all the friendly stuff. So party 1, 2, 3 lay on hands, sack, bop, freedom, summer, dispel, and so forth. So this is just kind of where I hide the junk that I don't need to see in the game, because I can just have one clean button on here that I actually see in combat to track the cooldown and charges and things like that. And then on the left you can see I have some of my mounts and some other things I need, like my war bank or switching flight style, those sorts of things. But the nice thing is you can easily just turn mouse over back on, and then these are gone for now, but they're still active, and all the keybinds associated with them still work. So this is just kind of a nice thing that ElvUI does that I like, and we'll turn off those as well. So that's kind of the basic overview of ElvUI, why I like it, and some of the features that you can use with it. There's a lot of customizations here. I've spent a lot of time working on it, but at the end of video, I'm going to show you how you can copy and paste this profile exactly with just a few, Control-C, Control-V on your computer. Coming up next, we're going to look at WeakAuras and how they supplement this UI to give me more information that I need. The next important part of my UI that we're going to discuss are WeakAuras. Well, WeakAuras have sort of a controversial reputation in the PvP community, but the way I see it, WeakAuras are there to help give you information and supplement the base UI so that you can react to incoming information in the arena quickly. And so with that being said, I'm just going to type /WA, and we're going to look at all the WeakAuras that I have. And you can see that there's quite a lot. So we can just start going from top to bottom. I'll highlight the ones that are ones made by me and ones that are made by others. They're mostly made by other people. So I have one that's called Arena Friendly Markers. It just puts this little double arrow above your teammates' heads with their class color. It makes it very easy to find people without changing markers and shuffle and things like that. There's another one for Awakening. Awakening is a spell that Holy Paladins use where as you spend Holy Power in combat, you get a stacking buff of Awakening, and once you have 15 stacks, it'll empower your next judgment to give you wings for a few seconds. And you can see there's two little pieces of that WeakAuras here. Another key one is the enemy drinking WeakAuras. This one I adapted from an existing WeakAuras way back in Shadowlands, and basically it just does this blinking alert in the middle of the screen and plays a sound when the enemy healer is drinking, and it just sounds like this. Just a nice little soft sound to remind you that, hey, if someone can go stop that healer drinking, it should. There's a few from one of my favorite PvE Holy Paladin streamers, Ellesmere. He's got a nifty one to show when you're missing your beacons. There's this one for dungeons. It's not relevant here. There's a few quality of life ones, like this one mutes the loud NPCs in Dornegal. There's this Dusk and Dawn bar, and remember, Dusk and Dawn are these 2 buffs that you get when you're casting Holy Power Builders and Holy Power Spenders. So that just gives you a little bar to show which one you have. There's a bunch of ones that I made myself. There's ones for my custom ElvUI portraits. There's one for a precog alert that gives you a very clear indication when you have the precog buff. I have my own list of cooldown announcements that I made that shows a unique symbol and plays a unique sound whenever someone presses an offensive cooldown. And I have another one that's just a very simple one that shows you when you have an aura missing, and I can just test that one now. If I click off my Diva aura, it says, hey, you don't have any aura up, you dummy, so make sure to get that reactivated. Very simple. And then I have an array of WeakAuras that track different buffs and procs. And this is just so you don't have to move your eyes from the center of the screen up to the top right of the screen where the buffs are located. Just so you can kind of keep your eyes centered on the action here. So I have one for wings. I have one for this buff called Shining Righteousness that you don't typically use in PvP, but I still have one. I have one for the Hammer of Wrath proc from Veneration. I have one for the Anshe proc, which gives you the big buffed Holy Shock, and you can see all the other ones I have here. And again, these are freely available to you. I have a link down in the description where you can download all these WeakAuras and copy them into your WoW profile. And I have some other ones for my Resto Shaman, which I haven't played in a while, but they're there if you want them as well. And then I have another one that does a special glow on the unit frame. These are for buffs that I like to respond to very quickly, and so I put even more information on the page. And you'll see this in my UI when I'm playing versus some Evokers playing Chrono Loop or Monks playing Karma. And basically it just puts a pixel glow around your party frame. Whoever got Karma on them, it'll show a Karma colored sort of loop around there. So you can instantly respond to it, for example, with a Dispel or a Bop. I've got a few other ones, basically just aimed at increasing my quality of life. I've got this PvP buff that shows, me and everyone watching my stream, how long I've been waiting in queue. I've got one that shows my stats down here in a nicely kind of abbreviated way. This is a targeted spell one. This is, again, mostly for PvE. I don't use it in an arena. Same with this one that shows dispels. And then I've got this totem tracker one that I only use for the enemy totems. This is one that I downloaded courtesy of Mystical the Monk, another great member of the WoW streaming PvP community. And it's basically got glowing icons for all the different totems and special player NPCs that you might need to kill or deal with. And then finally, I've got, since sometimes I'm moving my mouse to, like, say, kill a grounding totem or Scyfiend or something in the middle of the game, and I need to know where my cursor is to do that. So I have this one that just adds a bit of a glow to my cursor so it's easier to see. But basically, those are my WeakAuras. I use it just to improve the UI and give me the information I need. Again, you can pick and choose any of these that you want or don't want, and the link is in the description below to download the ones if you like any of them. That is it for the WeakAuras. What we're going to do next is dive into OmniCD, which is an add-on to show friendly cooldowns. OmniCD is an add-on that I use to track friendly cooldowns. So let's open up the options. This is the interface. We'll go to Arena and Test. And you can see it puts what I want OmniCD to show right next to my ElvUI party frames. And I have all the stuff that I would care about seeing as a healer: Trinket, Personal Defensives, Interrupt, Dispel, Crowd Control, and so forth. The nice thing about OmniCD is you can totally customize what you want to see. All you have to do is just go to Spells, which class you want to look at, and then just check and uncheck what you want to see or not see. I typically find that when you're in Shuffle, it's nice to look at offensive cooldowns as well, because then you know when your teammates are trying to do damage without having to hop into a voice channel. And you can see I generally like showing like what's the main offensive cooldown, main defensive cooldown, and you can see how they're all separated here, as well as some key utility or crowd control, and some important trinkets. So I like to see the cooldown on Medallion, so I know if I should trinket because my teammate has no trinket, or if I should let them press first, and so on. So this helps tremendously with preventing defensive overlaps and lets you know kind of lets you guide your decision making process in the midst of an arena battle. And luckily this one has easily shareable profile, so again just check that link in the description and you'll have all the information you need to get this directly copied to your game. Next up we have BuffOverlay. I'm just going to open up that interface now. What BuffOverlay does is exactly what it sounds like. It overlays the icon of a buff over your party frames when they press the button corresponding to that icon. So just to give an example, if I press my Divine Protection, this is my little wall, I'll get a symbol that shows up on my ElvUI party frame. And furthermore, you can see a glow around my OmniCD icon on the left. So there should be no question that that ability was used. You can see it's now on cooldown over here. So this helps you just immediately see that your allies have used a defensive cooldown. All right, and you can, as with many of the other add-ons we've seen so far, you can totally customize what you see here. If I hit test, you can see I show up to 3 spells here, but I also have different groups. So the main reason that I use this is for defensive CDs, but I also use it in 2 other groups. So of course defensives, this is going to be, I have everyone's personal wall showing here. Hunter Roar of Sacrifice, Paladin Bubble, Bop, Spell Warding, Shield of the Righteous, Aura Mastery, all those things. And then in the Forbearance group, we have a much more limited group of spells, but these are basically ones that have an internal cooldown. So of course it's used to track Forbearance, and we can see if, for example, I put Bop on myself, you see what you saw before. So you see Bop in the center of the party frame. You see a glowing icon for OmniCD, and because I'm on Forbearance now, you can see Lay on Hands and Bubble are grayed out. And now I have this Forbearance group activated with the Forbearance icon and a timer showing how much longer I have left in Forbearance. This is very important for Paladins to know when your teammates are on Forbearance, to know what you're going to need to trade that's not a Forbearance ability to get you through until they're off Forbearance. But there are a few other spells that sort of act like Forbearance where you can't use it again for a limited amount of time. So I'm going to go back to the BuffOverlay interface and show you what spells those I'm talking about there. There's one for Mage. I have Hypothermia here. So if a mage uses Ice Block, they go on Hypothermia and they can't Ice Block again for 30 seconds. And so that's good to know because a Frost Mage might use their first block, but then you say, okay, they have another one, but why aren't they using it? It's probably because they're on Hypothermia. So it's good to know, okay, if I need to save them, but they're on Hypothermia, I'm going to have to, press something to keep them alive. And the last one I use for in the Forbearance group is this Demonic Gateway. And so when I play with Warlocks a lot, and when you use Demonic Gateway, you go on a cooldown over here, and this icon looks like this. And basically, it's either a minute and a half by default, or your Warlock might take a PvP talent that'll make it 1 minute, and that'll show you, for all your party members that have used Gate, how long before they can use Gate again. And so this is just nice to, it's kind of, I have some real estate on my unit frames reserved to see all those internal cooldowns at once, and what what buttons they can use or not use depending on what's on cooldown there. And then I have another one that I just call important debuffs, and these are usually glowing icons for buffs that you really want to take care of or at least be aware of. So I have one for the Necrotic Wound from Unholy Decays to know when they have that Heal Absorb going. I have one for Demon Hunter Essence Break, and you can see that one's glowing because that's when the Demon Hunter is going to be doing a lot of damage. And we'll just go through all the different classes here. I have one for Oppressing Roar. This is important to dispel as soon as you can. Hunters, I have all of their different venoms from their Chimera Shot. So it goes Scorpid Venom, and then Spider Venom, and then Viper Venom, and you can, dispel or freedom or judge dispel off those as you see fit. Mages have a few. There's Frost Bomb, which is important to dispel before that goes off and does a lot of damage. Living Bomb, and also Touch of the Magi. Even though Magi is not dispellable, I don't have it glowing. It's still good to know that it's there to prepare for some incoming damage. For a monk, I have Touch of Karma. You really want to know if that's on your ally, so you can bop it, or at least throw up a sack or some other damage reduction to get through it. I have Searing Glare because you want to. Again, this is the common theme here is basically stuff that you want to dispel or deal with urgently, and so I have some glowing ores there to show that. Same with Denounce. So these are some buffs that paladins can put on you to make your attacks miss or make it so you can't crit in the case of Denounce, and you want to again just dispel that or at least be aware that it's on your ally. For rogues, I have a few. I don't think Sepsis is in the game anymore at the point where I'm recording this video, so I don't need that, but it was there before. I have Deathmark. This is a very common thing to bop. Shiv is another good one to be aware of. You can't bop or dispel Shiv, but it's at least good to know that there's a huge healing reduction on your ally at that point. For Warlocks, I have Soul Rot, Havoc, and all of the curses, as well as Soul Rip. For Warrior, we have this Mortal Strike icon for when Sharpened Blade goes through, to show you when they have that really, really intense healing reduction. And that's it. So again, it's just, BuffOverlay is just a way to quickly see what's going on. If I test all, you can see they're not overlapping too much with the icons that I have here. And usually not all of these are active at the same time, but basically, if I'm looking at this unit frame down here, I can see where the health line is. I can see if they're using any defensives. I can see if there's any really bad debuffs I need to deal with. And I can see if they're on Forbearance or if they can use Gateway or if they're on Hypothermia, as well as the regular ElvUI buffs and debuffs here, and all of my OmniCD over to the left. The last bit of my UI that deals with stuff affecting my party frames over here, but also affecting some things like nameplates, is BigDebuffs. BigDebuffs is a famous add-on used by a lot of PvPers, and it's very customizable, and I'm just going to tell you how I use it. Since I already have covered debuffs and buffs in the previous parts of this video, again, to review, we just have the party frames over here. These are from ElvUI. On the bottom row, we have a couple of debuffs. On the top row, we have a couple of buffs. In the middle, we have important defensives. On the left, we have important debuffs. And on the right, we have a column for Forbearance-like abilities. Of course, Forbearance, Hypothermia, Demonic Gateway cooldown, those sort of things. Okay, so that's the unit frame. And of course, on the left, we have the OmniCD. So this is the layout right now, and we're going to basically add one more thing here, and that's from BigDebuffs. So I want to open that up and show. I think I can test it. It's not testing on unit frames, but basically there's a section over here where it will show CC. So you can see the unit frames are already pretty crowded, so the CC goes just to the right of it. And so if your teammate is in a CC that you can freedom or dispel or bop and so forth. But it's also important to see them on nameplates, which we'll see in a second here. I'm just going to test it on this NPC out here in Hollowfall. So I'm going to Repentance him, and you can see that again this nameplate is ElvUI. I have a buff up here that shows Repentance from ElvUI, but just so I definitely don't miss it, I have a big one, and that's shown by BigDebuffs. Another important thing that I show in this area would be immunities. So if that was an arena enemy and he had, let's say, Spell Reflect or Bubble, Spell Bop, he was in a Glimpse, Cloak of Shadows, anything where he could immune, then I would have that showing as well. And so that's really the two key things I show here with BigDebuffs. I show on nameplates, I show crowd control, spell immunities, interrupts, and roots. These are all, I consider crowd control, interrupts, and roots to all be sort of the same thing. And it's important to show these on nameplates so that when you're trying to do a follow-up CC, let's say you're playing Shadow Play and your Shadow Priest stuns them and then silences them, and then out of that your Warlock gets a kick. You want to see all of these things so that you're not overlapping that stun with a teammate stun or with an interrupt, so that you're putting the enemy in CC for the maximum amount of time. And then of course it's important to show immunities so that you don't waste your CC by hodging into Fade or Ground, although I've certainly done that a fair number of times. This helps reduce that happening, and you at least know that it's up. And then on uniframes, all I show are, this would be what I was talking about before, that show up to the right of the party frames. I'm only showing crowd control, interrupts, and roots. So it's important to see when your teammates are kicked, for example. If you're playing with a Shadow Priest and they get kicked on Shadow at low HP, you're probably going to have to press a button to save them because they can't use their dispersion, which is their main cooldown. And so you wouldn't have that knowledge unless you're showing interrupts. And of course, it's good to show roots so that you can freedom your allies, keep them offensive. And it's otherwise good to show what crowd control they're in to know whether or not they can assist you, whether or not you can dispel that CC, and so on. Now that we've talked about all the add-ons for the friendly side of things, now we're going to go into the two main add-ons I use to track what the enemy is doing. The first of which is GladiusEx. So I'll open up that options menu. It looks like this, and I'll say test 3v3. That's mostly what we're concerned with. And we see a lot of information show up here on the right side of my screen. And I'll just guide you through basically what everything is. We have class colors and resource bars for Arena 1, 2, 3, and it shows what class they are, what their role is. And to the right of the health bars, we have the trinket and their racial. And then further to the right of that, we have arena pets. So, usually a demon hunter and a resto druid don't have a pet, but it shows them here just because it's possible that one or more of your arena enemies might have a pet out, and it makes it easier to just click on them to target. And then, for example, let's say you're facing a demonology warlock, you can click their main pet and cast Turn Evil to fear them without having to have a keybind for target arena pet 1, 2, 3, and so forth. And then on the left, there's two important pieces of information. I'm going to restart the testing here, and you'll see there's a spell bar, and that'll show whatever they're casting. This is good to know so that you're aware of incoming CC or big damage events. And then there's the DR diminishing returns tracker for crowd control, kind of above and to the left of the health frames. And so this shows you how much they've been recently CC'd. And it only shows, in the test mode, it only shows for incaps and disorients. But if we go into the add-on settings here, I can actually see that we go to DR tracker and the categories. I have turned on stuns, disorients, and incapacitates because those are the types of CC that I have access to personally as a Holy Paladin. Of course, if you were playing a class with roots, silences, knockbacks, and so forth, you probably would want to enable those as well. But they're not so relevant for me, so again, I'm just showing the information that I want to show. Now that we've laid out GladiusEx for my enemy arena frames, I'm going to show you how I use the following add-on, OmniBar, to show different types of enemy cooldowns at different places on my screen. So I'm going to open up the OmniBar menu real quick, OmniBar, and you can see I have all these different groups here. I have CC, something called counter CC, which I'll explain in a bit, defense, offense, dispels, and kicks. So I'm just going to go through these one by one. So let's test the crowd control bar first. This appears right above my target frame, and I have 2 rows of 5, so I can see plenty of things to see what's coming off cooldown, so I can know, when to expect an incoming paralyze from a monk or a fear from a priest. Moving on to, let's do kicks. We'll test kicks. These appear right above my player frame. You can see it's customized to fit nicely with the rest of my UI. So this is important because obviously you don't want to go around casting tears in the middle of the map, casting a big holy light, if you think that you're going to get kicked by someone. Another one that I like to use is called counter CC. So these are all the things that would prevent me from crowd controlling someone. So smoke bomb, nether ward, spell reflection, glimpse, death, fade, berserker rage. These are all things that give them immunity to some sort of CC that I can do. And so I have them shown here so that I don't, for example, accidentally hodge into a ground or a fade or a spell reflect and then hodge myself. Of course, it happens sometimes, but again, this is all to just give the information out there, and then it's up to you to do with that information what you will. Okay, a few more bars to go through. Let's see, we've done crowd control, we've done kicks, we've done counter CC. So now beneath the enemy arena frames, I have two bars, one for offense and one for defense. And you can see on the offense, this would be everything that you would need to react to, probably with a cooldown, Ascendance, Pillar of Frost, Dragon Rage, and so on. And then defense is good to know to figure out targeting. So if the Paladin doesn't have, Shield of Vengeance, or if the DK doesn't have AMZ or AMS, then you'll know that it's missing there, and that you can swap to that target, and it might be a good kill target. So both of those are good to know. The final group that we have is dispels. I'm going to test that, and that just goes right up here, and it includes a couple of things. For one, it includes the magic dispel of the enemy healer. So this is a cleanse. If it was an enemy paladin, it would show up here. And this is good because if the enemy healer has their dispel on CD, that means that you can freely hodge or rep or searing glare a DPS, and they won't be able to dispel it. So that's all good information to know. I also have some offensive dispels or purges there shown. So this is good to know to see if let's say you're facing an enemy hunter. This is the icon for trank shot, and they're kind of just trank shotting on CD to remove some buffs like freedoms or eternal flame. If that's the only purge on the team and you see that it's on cooldown, you can then follow it up with a freedom, a bop, something that you want to protect, and then you know that their purge with the cooldown can't be used. So those things are all good to know there. And you can see if I test them all, I do this so that I can look at different locations on my screen for different pieces of information. Kicks and counter CC over here, crowd control on the right, defensive and offensive CDs below the enemy arena frames, and then dispels above the arena frames. And it looks overwhelming at first when I say test all, but usually there's only a few in each category that are active at one time. And again, this is just to give you the information. You look at one part of your screen really quickly, and you get the information you need to make decisions on the fly in the very fast-paced nature of an arena game. One of the last few add-ons that we're going to look at today is Details. I think many people are familiar with Details. It's a common add-on used by people across all sort of content types in WoW, and it basically just takes a native feature of the game, the combat log, and puts it into a nice live summary in these Details windows. I have mine set up, pretty much specifically for 3v3, but of course it works in all situations. My main setup is here in the bottom right of my screen. I have two windows. One is for damage done and one is for healing done. And I have a lot of small modifications to the default state of Details. Namely, you can see the friendly team is always in blue, the enemy team is always in red, classic blue versus red, bad guys in blue, or sorry, good guys in blue, bad guys in red. And that just makes it easy to see, did we, who am I healing, and then who is the enemy there. So this makes it very clear with those colors. And then you can see the names and the specs on the left, and then on the right we have two numbers. One is going to be the total damage or total healing, and then the number to the very right is the DPS or the HPS. Something that I like to do with details that I don't see a lot of people do is I build in bookmarks, and that makes it to easily go between different types of data that you want to look at. So if I just right-click this window, you can see all of my bookmarks here. I have damage, healing, mana restored, deaths, damage taken, everything you want to know, interrupts, if you want, you know, complain at your teammates, why are they griefing you and not interrupting anyone, or if they want to complain to you, hey, why am I not getting dispelled enough? You can see everything here. Who broke the CC, who's doing a lot of CC, who's receiving the most CC. You know, look at the deaths to peek the death log for the big spicy one-shots. All that's here. And instead of navigating through you know, the menus like this, I just have all the ones I frequently look at in this window. So if I'm interested in mana, how much mana got restored by everyone, I just right-click and I look at, okay, and I click the mana restored, or if I want to look at crowd control, I can do that, and so forth. So this just makes it really easy. And then, of course, if you want to open it up to look at a detailed breakdown, you just left-click on any of these, and then you can see the breakdown for each spell. This is my healing for a decently long game. And you can also just scroll through here the different games on this left side, this segment selector here, to see, you know, what was going on for different games. And this is an important add-on to have for PvP because you always want to know, you know, how is your build performing? You know, where does most of your healing come from? You know, you can see, you know, for Holy Paladin, a lot of the healing is going to just come from Holy Shock and Eternal Flame. And we recently got some new talents like Holy Ritual and Just Reward, which do a decent amount of healing, but they're nothing too important. So if you wanted to say swap out those talents for something else in your tree, you could use this data to justify that. So this is just a nice summary of where all your healing came from. There's a lot of other features you can do, details that I don't use too much, like the aura counter. This shows you, you know, if you wanted to see how many procs of something you're getting, to see if it's worth taking, you can look at that. You know, for example, one thing I like to look at is how many procs of Blessing of Anshe I get and how often I'm using them. So in this game, I got 20 Anshe procs, that's quite a lot. And this is the refreshes of that buff. So this means that 2 times in this game, I got an Anshe proc and I didn't use it. So that can be something you can use to improve your game, because you say, I always want to be using these Anshe procs, so I got to just find a way to use it immediately after I get it, in most circumstances, to avoid these refreshes, which basically put the proc to waste. So you can get so much information from using details. I highly recommend it. And if you like how my profile is set up, you can just look in the link in the description below, and you can copy and paste my profile instantly. Last but not least, the final add-on we're going to talk about is Diminish. Diminish does one thing and one thing only as far as my UI is concerned, and that is to track my own personal diminishing returns for crowd control. So I'll toggle the test mode here, and you can see right next to my player frame, I have some icons. There's also another one for disorients, that basically here we have stuns and incapacitates, and you can see in this example I'm on single diminishing return there and double diminishing return there. This is important because if you are on DR for certain CC types, that can affect how you play. You might be able to cross the map more safely because you can't be feared or stunned, etc. Or if you're playing, let's say, RMP, they have access to all 3 types of crowd control, right? So if you're on poly DR, you're free to cross the map without worrying about getting CC'd by the mage. And if you're on stun DR, you can play a little bit more aggressively without worrying about being swapped to, because they cannot stun you. Similarly, you know, once that DR is running off, I'll open this up again briefly. As soon as you're coming off stun DR, that's when you can expect to be stunned again. So that'll give you a chance to press buttons that you can't press in a stun, like Aura Mastery, or, you know, press sack on a teammate before they CC you for a setup on that ally. So it's just a simple lightweight add-on. For me, it only does this. You can set it up to show your full diminishing returns on your allies and elsewhere, but for me, I just use it for diminishing returns for myself. That is it for all the add-ons. that I use in my day-to-day PvP experience. Next up, I'm going to show you how to actually download and install the add-ons to use them as you see in this video. Now I'm going to show you guys how you can import all the profiles for all the add-ons that we talked about today. First thing we do is we're going to go to my Twitch stream. We're going to go to chat and type in !UI, and it'll pull up a pastebin link. Now, this link is also available in the description for this video below, but I wanted to show you guys another way how to access it for your convenience. So we'll click on this pastebin. We see a list of different add-ons. Some of them are going to be profile strings you can copy paste to get the add-on profile immediately. Other ones are a little bit more annoying. They're just these LUA files that you have to copy and paste into some of your WoW files on your computer, but I'll show you how to do both. But starting with the easy stuff, let's just look at details, for example. So I click on that. I click on this little clipboard icon. It says it was copied. Okay. Let's go back to WoW. You go to details, this little gear, options panel, and where it says profiles, you click that, and then you set import profile, and then you just paste that string. And it says okay, and we can call this just patar demo. Okay, and now you have this profile here. You can see this is like a default one, not so nice. So we'll just go to that demo one, and then you'll have exactly what you have here. Okay. Now another profile that you might be interested in importing is ElvUI. So for example, we just go to the ElvUI profile itself, and this is a much bigger file, but we just hit copy to clipboard again. That's copied. Okay. Once again, we go back to WoW. You open the ElvUI options. I do that with a text shortcut, but you can also just hit escape and hit this ElvUI button. Go down to profiles, go to import, and then just paste in what you want to import. And we'll call this patar demo. Okay. And again, we'll, for example, look at the default profile. It's really ugly. You can't really tell what's going on. Everything's gray. But then, you just import that profile, and we're all good. It's the demo profile. Okay. So that's details in ElvUI. For the other ones, it's not going to be so simple, but in order of increasing difficulty, I'll first go to the WeakAuras. So I have this page that's just WeakAura links, and this is going to be a list of two different types of WeakAuras. One is going to be my WeakAura, so I'm going to copy this, go to a new tab, and this is where I just, the WeakAuras are hosted on wago.io, and this is where I keep mine as well. And you can see all the ones that I talked about. We have PvP cooldown announce, aura reminder, precog alert, ElvUI portraits, and then the group of the paladin buffs. And then as another way to access my profile, you can get my ElvUI profile here as well. So if you wanted to say download this cooldown announce WeakAura, you just click into it, hit the copy WeakAura copy import string, go back to WoW, / or /WA to get to WeakAura, and then you just hit import and paste again. Now I already have this one, so it says create, copy, or update, but basically you would just hit import and then you would get the aura that you're interested in. And you can do this for all the other WeakAuras as well. Again, we're at my pastebin hub. We go to WeakAura links, and you just can copy and paste these into a new tab and get the WeakAuras there. Okay, and this goes for all the other ones too. I just have it separated here between what are my WeakAuras and what are other people's WeakAuras. So if you wanted the arena-friendly markers, you just go here. You can see the author and all the comments and versions and so forth, and you can just hit copy and do the same process again. Okay, now for the trickier stuff. For the other ones, they don't have features where you can just copy and paste profiles, but you still might still want those anyways. So for example, we go to this add-on BuffOverlay.lua, and you would do the same process. This is the entire LUA file, and you're probably thinking, but where do I put it? You would just, once again, copy this, and then you go to go back to WoW for a moment. I'm going to open up my notepad because it has this location on here. And you can see right there, we have, this is the directory where you actually want to put that file. So you're going to go C, Program Files, x86, World of Warcraft, Retail, WTF, Account. This will be your actual account name. I didn't want to dox myself too hard, so I just put that there as a dummy. But this will be your actual account name there. And then you go to this folder called Saved Variables. Inside the Saved Variables folder, you will see, turn this off, you will see all these file names. You'll see BigDebuffs.lua, BuffOverlay.lua, and so forth. And you just find those files in this folder, open it up, and then copy the contents from this file into yours, and voila, you'll have what you need. Not exactly the easiest thing, but not all the add-on developers have the capability to directly import a profile like that. So that is it for how to do these imports. Hopefully this process makes sense. If you have any questions or you're having trouble, please let me know in the comments or stop by my stream and I can walk you through it there. Thanks. Okay, I wasn't going to do this when I set out to make this video, but I've gotten so much feedback from you guys, positive feedback, that you really like these demos at the end, kind of explaining the point of the video in an actual live arena game. So I'm going to do that here as well. I picked a really short shuffle round, and in this one, I'm just going to be pausing it at a few points throughout the game to show you what's happening on screen and how it's reflected in my UI. Okay, let's get started. Okay. Gates open. So right away, a few things happen. On the party side of things, you can see that my mage has used his barriers and that my feral is in prowl. That's his stealth. You can see me casting tears here. You can see the party cast frame here as well. And on top of that, I don't have it shown on my buff overlay, but I do have it shown here that the mage has pressed Icy Veins. So there's already a lot of stuff happening in the game. None of it is too important for me at this point. I can also see that the shaman has used their double purge, their greater purge, and that's on cooldown now. Okay, the game proceeds. Okay, now at this point, you can see my feral has opened up with some rake stuns, which is shown on the nameplates there. As well, my mage has done the snowdrift stun, and the Ellie has pressed Stormkeeper, which just showed up in my PvP alerts WeakAuras. Furthermore, the hunter has pressed Trank Shot, so both of the kind of instant cast purges are out of the way. As I push in, a few more things happen. The shaman presses Grounding Totem, so this grounding immunity appears everywhere. Again, that's done through BigDebuffs. And the shaman presses his wall, which I can see here. This is in the buffs portion of my ElvUI nameplates. And on top of that, the hunter gave him Roar of Sack and then a time dilation from the evoker. Grounding Totem gets killed. The game's going on right there. So right there, it blink and you miss it, but the Ellie pressed Ascendance, which is also why everyone's health is low. And a few other things happen. You know, my feral's got Incarn rolling. He pressed Barkskin. I also pressed Aura Mastery with Devotion Aura up for some extra damage reduction. And you can see the various CC DRs over here. I can see the purges coming back off cooldown. And you can see some of this reflected in my OmniBar. So we got the Grounding Totem cooldown. Over here, I'm counting that as a what I'm calling a counter CC. And then the CC is showing up here in the form of the Pet Stun Intimidation. I've got an offensive cooldown here. This is Ascendance. And then some defensive cooldowns, the Shaman Wall, and the Hunter used Roar of Sack. Okay, let's keep looking. Just kind of repositioning here. There's a sheep onto the healer. I'm just basically healing. My mage does a good job of baiting the shaman over here, and he gets killed. Now, the results of the game is not so important for this commentary, but I'm just trying to show you what's going on. So I'm actually going to go back just a little ways here. Okay, so right before I pressed sack, how about? Sure, okay. So my mage is taking the most damage right now. and the shaman's chasing for a kill. So what I do is I press sack on the mage, and that's reflected here, and the sack debuff on me is also reflected here with the same icon. And then the hunter has used his Chimera Sting, and there's one of those silences used. You can see the silence here, but it's also reflected on my unit frame right there. So I would be looking at the hunter for it to press judgment on him to dispel my silence, but the game is over, so I didn't need to do that. And that is basically it for this game. You can see what CCs have gone out. So this is, at the snapshot, there's a lot of information, but importantly, we look at our party buffs, or our party frames, we can see the buffs that I have out. We can see externals I press, namely sack. We can see some debuffs down here in the bottom left. We got some serpent stings and some flame shocks. And then OmniBar is showing grounding totem, various crowd controls like trap and intimidation stun, and also offensive cooldowns like Ascendance, defensive cooldowns like Astral Shift and Roar of Sacrifice. And you can see all the CCDRs here. So altogether, it doesn't look too overwhelming, but it's still going to take some time to know where to look for what information you need in the game. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this arena commentary and this whole entire video on the UI. If you have any other recommendations, please let me know in the comments or stop by my stream and say hi. Thanks.